Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are doing a recap and review of The Bachelorette season 16 episode 6, and Tayshia got to try to separate the boys from the men. So before we jump into this video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you're new here, and also drop a comment and like this video if you enjoy it. Also, too, I want to send a shout out to a health and beauty skincare company. They specialize in all natural skincare, whether it's body butters and all different fragrances, scents. They use only natural ingredients. So if you're looking for something that is good and healthy for your skin, I call it skin food, then therefore go over and check them out. They have different fragrances to choose from, everything from lavender to peppermint to citrus, honey almond, and they even have other specialty fragrances, especially that's seasonal. And then if you're looking for exfoliation to look for a natural option in regards to natural ingredients, they also have that as well. So go over there and check them out at myskincarenatural.com. It'll be in the description below. All right, so we begin week 6 of The Bachelorette 2020, and of course our leading lady is meeting with we saw last week that she met with a group of men after making instant connections, and especially with Zach and Brendan. However, we start this week right off the bat with a group date, which includes Montel, Ivan, Damar, Ben. We have Chasen, Joe, Ed, and of course Bennett. And as you saw last night, it was definitely an interesting episode with all of the guys that I just spoke of. So they all get ready to go, and of course they're meeting up with Tayshia, and everybody's excited to see her. And it's interesting that I like how Tayshia is doing her season. She's building connections, but she is taking her time. But it's interesting to see how these guys have definitely flipped the switch coming off of Claire. And, I guess looking for love, and now, choosing to be, moving forward with Tayshia. But, Tayshia in this particular example, especially with this now grown man challenge, she's being very clear about wanting to find a man to be her husband, not a boy. So this particular challenge will definitely, separate the group accordingly. And then, of course, she actually had 2 other past Bachelor, I think they were in Bachelor in Paradise, both Jared and Ashley, who are, I think she's engaged or married now. But it's interesting that they started off with this spelling questions game, and because Bennett went to Harvard, he thought that that was definitely going to be his strong point, right? Well, unfortunately for Bennett, and it was it was kind of embarrassing because they did this first thing to calculate the time. Everybody came up with 9 at 17 a.m. and he came up with 9:07. He was definitely off. The answer was 9:17 a.m. So he's trying to, he kind of threw it off to say, well, maybe it was just a fluke, right? Wrong. So then they had another question that came up, and he didn't do particularly well at that either, right? And the guys were clowning him about the fact, like, dude, you're supposed to be from Harvard, and you are failing these questions miserably. And then, of course, there was how to spell the word limousine. And Limousine is the correct answer. And he had Limosine. All right, Mr. Harvard. And of course, Ivan is definitely clowning him for real. And he's so embarrassed because he's like, wait a minute. I'm a Harvard grad, and I can't get none of the 3 answers. He was 0 for 3. Okay. So I thought that was so funny, and then a couple of guys was like, hey, I didn't go to an Ivy League school and I did just fine. It is what it is. So then they do this whole thing with this tug of war challenge to see who can pull fastest to get to the flowers. And of course, Ivan was all in. He definitely won that first challenge. And then we also have the other challenge where these two guys who also performed at this particular tug of war challenge, and we had a winner of each. And looked like Ed was struggling a little bit because he definitely did not win that challenge. Okay. Um, I got some things I want to say in regards to Ed, but we'll get to him later. So then they had to do the next thing, which was try to do breakfast in bed for Tayshia. And the guys definitely go out of their way to make an impression. They're cooking and trying to come up with the most creative idea to serve breakfast in bed. And then, whoever is kind of, I guess, the bottom of this will become the man child, which he has to walk around with a baby. So we have our first guy, which is Damar. And he's definitely serving it up really nicely. He's extremely handsome, by the way. But he just basically kept it, status quo. And we had Ivan serving up breakfast. And then, of course, Chasen definitely can't wait to his turn because he's trying to think of something creative. We see Ed doing push-ups to try to prove how manly he is. And then Chasen, it's his turn, and he decided to take his shirt off. Ed is definitely not feeling that at all. He decides, I'm not going to give breakfast. I'm just going to give you myself for breakfast. I mean, that is a little creative. I will say that much. I don't know if, Tayshia played right along with it, but it is what it is. So then we have who decides to serve breakfast in a robe. And he's definitely trying to set the scene. He's like, wait a minute, you know what? I'm going to put a robe on. It's like the both of us. We're going to have breakfast in bed together. And I thought that was kind of creative on his part because that's the thing. It's not just serving breakfast. It's who can be the most creative and keep it memorable so Tayshia can make the decision that stuck out the most in her mind. And even it stuck out definitely very well with Ashley and Jared too. So, he was definitely creative. He took it another notch by feeding her the breakfast in bed. And then it was decision time. And of course, we show that Tayshia decides to give the baby to Ed. So he's the man child of the group. And he took it in stride. And I think Tayshia said the same thing. Is something sexy about a man taking care of a child. So he had to carry that baby doll around, I think, throughout the rest of the evening, including on their group date as well. And of course, they had to find who the winner of this particular competition of the Grown Man Challenge, and everybody is definitely waiting, but the winner that was declared was Bennett. And that's kind of surprising, especially how he didn't do well on the first portion, but I guess really the whole thing with the breakfast in bed was the turning point for her to declare him the winner of the Grown Man Challenge. So congrats to him. So, of course, now let's move on to, as the guys spend some time together, and Bennett is definitely rubbing in the face of everybody else about the fact that he has won this challenge. And, of course, the guys are kind of throwing jabs at him a little bit, and especially Ivan, because he remembered that whole thing about him being in Harvard and he wasn't answering the question right. So how could you, win that challenge? And they were kind of going back and forth, and everybody quieted down because now Tayshia's coming over and, trying to spend some time in the after party after the challenge. And Bennett was definitely going for trying to get that first date or that first one-on-one conversation with her. Unfortunately, Chasen had another idea, and he just kind of like overstepped and said, "Hey, Tasha, let's go talk." And she was definitely open with it, you know. So they had conversations, and a lot of what Ed was saying, that he was giving her the same verbiage about, oh, I'm here for you and I'm here for the right reasons and blah, blah, blah. He was saying the same thing to Claire before Claire left. And that's one of the things that Ed was bringing up with the guys, is like, you know what, the same thing he's saying to, you know, Tasha is the same thing he said to Claire. And I don't think he's here for the right reasons. I just think he's not genuine. He's saying duplicate things. So does he really mean it? And this whole thing has started into a little bit of a war between both Ed and Chaser. And of course, in the meantime, we see that Tasha gets some time with Ben. And, they're definitely having some conversation. And I actually think that there's somewhat of a connection here. I mean, you guys let me know what you think. Again, Brendan is still at the top of my list. But I don't know. It's a little bit of something going on with these two. So I'm going to have to keep my eyes open. And, you guys let me know what you think. It seems that she does find some interest in him. But as we further go on, she definitely now has some sit-down time with Ivan. And actually, these two do really well together, too. I am pleasantly surprised that she has a connection with him, and Ivan does as well. And I like what I'm seeing with these two. I mean, let me know what you guys think down in the comment about who your favorite couple is or connection that you see with Tasha. But so far, Brendan and Ivan seems pretty good to me. And he takes it a step further by kind of giving her a little blindfold, and he's going to feed her some fruit. So he has a bowl of strawberries, and he first gives her kind of like a little taste, and she definitely is for it. She's definitely here for it. And then the next thing he gives her is a kiss while blindfolded, and then of course she takes the blindfold off. I thought that was so cute. I actually thought that was a little bit different than what we've seen with the other guys. Kind of step it up and make it creative so you can have a memorable experience with her. However, in the meantime, back to Chasen and Ed. These two are going back and forth over Chasen's intentions. And, the guys are sitting around looking like, okay, what the heck, guys? I mean, seriously? And honestly, in my opinion, Ed is egging this thing on. I really think because there's some times, and we'll talk about this a little bit later because it'll come back up again, but Ed is pushing this thing. And unfortunately, I think that he's trying to push the buttons that he has, and get him upset, get an emotional reaction out of him so that, he can flip out. And then to make matters worse, Ed goes over to Tasha when he has his sit down. And instead of being focused on his connection with Tasha, he's over there telling Tasha about Chasen. And, I don't want to throw any names out there, throw anybody on the bus. Yeah, you do. That was your whole purpose, Ed. But he was telling Tasha that, hey, he's saying the same verbiage, the same words that he's been saying to you. He said that to Claire. It's identical. And he just want Instagram followers. And, I mean, it's just like, really, Ed, you supposed to be using this time, which is very short, to get to know Tasha and to see if you have a connection, not throw another dude under the bus to try to eliminate him. If that's your strategy, good luck with that. So he went over and he didn't even hide it. He's like, hey, I had a conversation about you. I went and told Tasha exactly what I thought of you, which is the fact that you're not here for the right reason. So now we got Chasen having a conversation with Tayshia about what was said, and Tayshia asked him, like, what's going on, and he was like, yeah, he is saying that I'm not here from the right reasons. I do want to get to know you. I'm interested in you. And it's frustrating for her. But what is interesting, I got to throw this out here, because she did the exact same thing when she was on Colton season with Colton and the other girls. So, it's to be expected, but I guess when you're on the opposite end, you get to see it a little bit differently, right, Tayshia? Anywho, so he comes back and confront Ed, standing up over him, yelling at him, and telling him, we can go. If you want to go and you want to start some stuff, we can go at it. And I'm like, dude, this is exactly what Ed wants you to do. He wanted to get an emotional response so you can act out. And then, of course, Tayshia's going to see this as negative and probably send you home. And, of course, the other guys are looking like, what the heck? And then, of course, Ben is sitting around trying to play games as if to say, you know what, I'm going to be the last one go in. If I'm the last person to go in and sit with and have a sit-down conversation with Tayshia, it's going to be memorable. Let them guys have their time first, and I'm going to get in last and do what I wanted to do in regards to talking to her. Unfortunately, he didn't get the opportunity. Tayshia came out and like, okay, I'm ready to give my group date rose. And, of course, she gives it to Mr. Ivan. And unfortunately for Ben, he didn't get the opportunity. And, he was like, well, before you give the rose, can we have a talk? And she was like, I'm out of time. And she was definitely disappointed. She went ahead and gave the rose to Ivan. But, she was disappointed in Ben for not stepping up and taking that initiative. So sometimes it doesn't pay to play games. Go in there and do what you need to do. And I'm really happy that, Ivan got that group date role. So I thought that was pretty cool. But unfortunately for Ben, you got to think about that next time. Stop playing games. So now the guys are gearing up for the rose ceremony, and because we didn't have one last week. So this is the rose ceremony that we now have to eliminate, I think, 3 people. And, Chasen is definitely worried because of the back and forth, him having to defend himself with Tayshia and Ed and this whole war. And he even, before the rose ceremony started, wanted to make an announcement about the fact that, hey, if I made anybody uncomfortable, I'm sorry. And what does Ed do? He still want to push the button and work his nerves and start cracking crazy cracks to his apology. And I'm like, dude, don't fall for it. This is exactly what Ed wants you to do. And then Bennett trying to be funny, come and take the baby from Ed, because remember, Ed still has that baby from the man-child win that he had. But then they started going back and forth, and I'm like, oh my God, really? And I'm like, just let it go. Ed is not going to back down. He's trying to get you out. So Tayshia walks in, and she's sitting down, just mingling and having some conversation with the guys. And, of course, they're happy to see her. And she's able to get a little bit more time because Ben finally got a chance to talk to her because he almost shot himself in the foot from the group Nate. But he was able to get some time with her finally, and that's good. We also saw Joe. They made I think it was some sushi, and then you had her and these little popsicles, and DeMar got some more time with her. And then we had, after her meeting with DeMar, a conversation with Zach. Now, Zach was definitely in the running last week, but then, Bennett also has kind of stepped up as well in regards to these two. And both of them, well, most of the guys, they're just sitting and talking and having some conversation. However, Ed is at it again. Ed goes, and again, not spending time building on his connection, he goes to tell Tasha about how Chasen stood up in front of him saying things and saying we can go at it and all of that. And I'm like, oh, God, geez, here we go. And, of course, Tasha's like, really? Not again. And I don't blame her because, I mean, if somebody keep bringing you messy drama like that, it's like, okay, are you guys seriously want to be here? So she pulls Chasen aside once again and have a conversation. And Chasen's trying to defend himself. He was like, look, yes, I said it. I did it. I'm going to own up to it. And she was like, why? You know you shouldn't be doing that. And he's like, I don't know if they're jealous or Ed is jealous of me. And, I need to stand up for myself. And she was like, why don't you just walk away? Here's the thing. Tasha's not realizing, and nobody has said this, and not even Chasen, that Ed is pushing the envelope. He's tried to apologize. And in each scenario, Ed keep throwing digs at him to try to get under his skin and push that emotional reaction even further, you know. And Chasen is like, what do I do here? So he said, okay, let me pull him to the side. Let me apologize. Give him a formal apology and say, I'm sorry. I mean, make you feel comfortable. I shouldn't have did what I did and standing up in front of you. What did Ed do? He didn't want to accept the apology, and he started a whole nother argument. If anybody, I think, that should have went home, it should have been Ed. And of course, Zach and the other guys are looking like, oh my God, guys, let it go. And they're even saying that Ed is just pushing this thing further than what it really is. And I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are just, they're sick of it. It's bad enough they went through the whole thing with what happened with Claire, and she left, and a lot of the guys didn't get an opportunity. This is a clean slate. Make the best of it. So she had a refreshing conversation with Zach, and trying to see where his head is and get to know and see if her connection is there. And it seems as from her conversation with Zach and the camaraderie that's going on between the two of them, she seems like she's really interested in him. So I'm interested to see where this could go. I mean, let me know if you guys think that she has a great connection with Zach. So we see Chris Harrison comes on the scene, and you know what that means. It's something's coming up, and of course it's time for the actual rose ceremony. And of course, as we all know, somebody's getting ready to go home. And the rose ceremony commences, and Chasen, and it's up in the air what's going to happen with Chasen and Ed at this point. Everybody's standing there, and those guys look so handsome in their suits. But as she stated, unfortunately, there were some connections that was not made, and she's going to have to eliminate 2 people. So, of course, Zach gets a rose, and then, we saw our next guy get one as well. And I mean, honestly, the guys that she did choose, it wasn't a big surprise. I mean, she had really built and had some conversations with the guys that we see here and really made some strides with them. I do see, I don't know about Bennett though. I think it was surprising to her the way he did everything on the breakfast date. But, some of these folks, I really, of course, I think you keep them along, but I see more connections with some over the other. So then it comes down to the final rose, because Ed got the second to last rose. And then, of course, that final rose, everybody was thinking like, oh yeah, Chasen's going home. It's without a doubt. And unfortunately, they were all wrong, because Chasen got a rose. And some of the guys were looking like, really? He's staying? Yeah, he's staying. Because she did build somewhat of a connection. She there's some part of her that really likes him. So, and unfortunately, we got to see Peter go home, and we also lost Montel as well. So hopefully, their journey will be able, where they be able to find love will be somewhere else. And then they toast the rest of the evening away. So now we are still in this episode because normally when we have a rose ceremony, usually in the show. But unfortunately, I would say fortunately, we still have more to come because there is a second group date. And on this second group date, we have Easy, Brendan, Joe, Jordan, Spencer, Ben, and Ed. And they were the lucky ones that were selected to be brought to a wrestling ring. So some stuff is definitely about to go down. And you know what? When I was watching this, I'm like, this is so predictable. They're definitely going to pit Ed and Chasen against each other. Most definitely. Well, they did. And it was interesting to see how, the guys were pretty excited about this. They definitely was here for it. None of them was complaining, but, Ed was definitely, he knew that it was coming up to a point that they were going to put him with Jason. He knew that was coming. However, before we get to that point, there were some folks that did get a little scrapes and bruises and things. And I mean, some of these guys were really tough. It's like they definitely have been in the ring before. But then you see the look on Ed's face. He's like, shoot, I don't know if I'm ready to do this. But Chasen was definitely ready for it. He was definitely here for it. Well, Ed decides to pull Chris aside and like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do this. I got old injuries, my shoulder, and, I ain't trying to end up in the hospital, and I'm going to forfeit my opportunity. So, of course, Chasen needs somebody to wrestle against, and both Chris and Tayshia was like, who want to do it? And Noah jumped the fence. And a lot of folks that was on the group date was like, how he gonna jump in this? But hey, Chris and Tayshia put it out there, and Noah he took it. He got his butt kicked. But at the same time, Chasen won the belt. So they declared him the winner of the wrestling group date. But surprise, surprise, Tayshia said, well, just because of the fact Noah stepped up and decided to fight, I'm going to allow him to be added to the group date. And those guys were not here for it. They was like, dude, how you just bogart your way? Okay, here's the thing, guys. Tayshia and Chris gave the option for somebody to do it, to fight against Chasen. Nobody else did it but him. So he was able to do it, and Tayshia chose him to come on the group date. It's not like he pushed his way on there. He was asked to do these things, so I think you guys need to get over it. Anywho, so again, now they're mad with him. At first, it was the whole war with Chasen and Ed. Now it's the war against Noah. And, she's liking the fact that he took the initiative. But it was interesting, she don't like his mustache. And I won't say she don't like it, but she was giving a suggestion, hey, why don't you see what you look like without a mustache? And especially after she kissed him. And he was like, yeah, you want to see me without a mustache? Okay, it's something I consider. Well, maybe, I'll check into that. And the guys are still fussing about the fact that Noah's on this date. And I'm like, you guys are wasting time, really. So then Mr. Adorable comes along, Mr. Brendan. He's at the top of my list for Tayshia. And then Ivan. Because of the connection. That's why I say that. They definitely are vibing. I mean, Brendan and her are just on point. So, in the meantime, he's looking at his face in the mirror, and Noah's like, maybe I should, cut this mustache off. So now she's having a sit down with Jordan, and he walks over and says, "Okay, I'm ready." And I'm thinking like, I don't know. What's playing? Because I thought he was going to cut off his mustache, not her. But he gave her the opportunity to shave his mustache. I thought that was really cute. That's what I'm saying. You have to be creative. Something has to. You can't be the same everyday blase blase, because you want to stand out to the person who's trying to pick you. And in this case, she shaved his mustache. And she did a good job at it too, because actually, once the mustache was gone, it really looked nice. He really looks good without the mustache. I mean, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments on, what you think. He looks better with the mustache or better without. But I like it. I say without the mustache. And she's definitely was there for it. They had an intimate connection as well. And I honestly think that, maybe, maybe they can do a little something, something. Maybe we'll see where their connection go, and maybe see how far he can go in this competition. Along with the other guys. So she has to give away another group date rose. And, people like Brendan and Easy, and, they were definitely in the running for it. But she obviously, and I actually think he looks really nice without that mustache. But she decided to give her second group date rose to Noah. And I'm telling you that sparked some anger, because it's like this dude wasn't even originally supposed to be on this date. He jumps the fence, but with permission, decided to fight. And this is where we are. And, people like Jordan and, Ed and the rest of them is just like, how this dude just gonna come over here? He wasn't even part of this date. And then not only did he get on the date, he win the group rose too. Hey, creativity goes a long way. Creativity and initiative. And that's what happened here. I mean, it wasn't like he pushed his way into this. In each situation, he won in the end because he was creative and he took the initiative. All right, so let's do our post notification shout out. If you ever want to shout out, comment down below and I will shout you out. So the first one is GJ. Thank you so much for engaging in the channel. I really, really appreciate it. I'm glad you appreciate the recap. Miss Love, yes, I like Brendan too. Thank you for engaging into the channel. I really appreciate your comment. And then last but not least, we have Princess E. Thank you so much as well for your comment, and I really appreciate you. And guys, again, if you like this video, smash the like button. If you are new here, feel free to subscribe to continue to receive quality content. And until next time, we will see you then.